Hello and namaste. I'm Pamela Aaralyn. I want to do a quick sound check for those of you watching our live interactive chat. Make sure that you can hear me. If it's a little too soft, I'll pull my microphone closer. If everything's okay, as is, let me know and we'll proceed. We're good? Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I always enjoy these certification classes so much because it gives me a chance to talk about my process that I love so much. I love alchemy. And I love integration processes. I'm not just keen on mine. I love so many different kinds, but of course, this is the one that I love the most. I have a little bit of favoritism toward this one because it's combinations of sound, the I am, light via visualization. It is emotional alchemy. So that's why I love it so much. Anything alchemy really, really fascinates me and always has. That's why I created this process, because I was going through a point in time where I was healing myself, and I thought, well, okay, I've tried shadow work, I've tried some hypnosis, I've tried some regressions, I've tried Reiki, I've tried pranic healings, I've tried so many different forms of healings, I've tried some shamanic journeys, and I'm like, what am I missing? And then that's how this came. That's how Aura Alchemy came into existence, because my guides stepped in and said, well, some people need specific combinations of all of those processes. Some people need everything, need a little timeline therapy, need a little regression, need a little bit of energy work, need a little bit of visualization, need a little bit of sound, need a little bit of everything. So that's how this came about. Today we will be taking camera requests. For those of you who would like to do that, just click under the producer chat above me. You'll see the chat and then the viewer list over to the side. If you just look up there, you'll see producers. And when you see Jim Benzie, just click on his name and put in a camera request if you'd like to work with me on screen, or if you have any questions that you would like to work out on screen, that's fine. I'd love to answer all your questions as specifically as possible. Also, you can put the questions in the viewer questions and suggestions box, which is right up under my face down here. So when you click on that, you'll see your own little picture or screen name icon, whatever it is you chose when you sign up. And then when you click on that, it says add new questions. That's where you type it out. Click submit, and you can ask questions in that way as well. So go ahead and load up the viewer question suggestions box, and I will also be paying attention to your questions in the chat screen, so feel free to ask those questions in chat as well. Someone is asking, how long is the class? It is anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit longer depending on how many questions you have about the process. I'm going to go over a little overview of what it is and how to do it, and a lot of specifics on how to guide yourself through the process and how to guide other people through the process. And then I'm going to go ahead and take your questions both during that explanation and after the explanation, at which point we will go ahead and begin to honor the camera requests for questions and for working with me with the process as well. You can come on screen if you would like to be worked through the process, and so that we can show people how it's done, and you can use yourself as an example, or you can just come on with any specific questions you have about the process as well. Either way, because we did work people through the process in front of all of us last time, and that was really, really interesting. So I'm very, very open with that. So, where do I start with it? Some people ask, is it shadow work? Yes. It is also light work. It is also sound work. It is combinations of light and sound. There is nothing new in any process work under the face of the sun. Components of this process date back 4,000 years. This comes from my particular recollections and memories of my own Akashic records back from the temples of Isis. So that's another, back in my, now that I have those memories, I realize how combinations of light, sound, and understanding your core beliefs, and then choosing a higher frequency of a core belief, that alchemizes the next step, the next most believable step of a core belief that will align you towards your life purpose. That's another reason why I created this process. It's not just so that you could heal from emotional traumas and heal from physical traumas that are caused by emotional traumas and manifestations thereof, but also so that you could step into your purpose, understand what your purpose is. Because when you find these core beliefs, then you understand that you can choose different ones. For those of you who don't understand what core beliefs are, it's very important to understand that before you know why you're doing this process or how to do it even. Core beliefs are beliefs that basically you created in childhood all the way up until now. It is an imprint that you formed. We call that the negative imprint. And essentially speaking, your negative imprint is the first belief system that you formed that caused a foundation for all the other negative beliefs and emotional traumas in your life. So essentially speaking, I'll give you mine as an example. My negative imprint is owned. I am owned. If you ask your inner child this is why some people come to me to find out their core beliefs and to find out their negative imprints. If you ask your inner child what your core beliefs are, normally it's related to what type of negative feelings and traumas you are experiencing in relationships, whether it be personal relationships, parental relationships, or normal good examples for where these things come from. Even I've noticed it even in certain dynamics with in colleagues and in career situations within employer-employee dynamics. I've noticed it in sibling dynamics. I've noticed it in partnerships of all kinds. I've noticed it in parents and children a lot. But basically speaking, if you can't figure out what your core belief is, you can ask a simple question of what is most emotionally bothering me right now? What is the feeling that is permeating my life on a regular triggering basis? For example, it could be something that has already manifested into an anxiety. For me, I struggle with anxiety, so fear is my dominant, paralyzing fear is one of my dominant daily triggers, is that any little thing that I have just sort of paralyzes me. So you would go into that emotion and then you would ask yourself, when is the last time I felt that way? You want to get really, really nitty gritty, really, really specific about these memories that come up. And it's important that when you're asking yourself those line of questions, or if you're walking a client or patient through this process, that you try to get them into specific memories. If you don't, you'll go into the alternative version of the process that we'll discuss here in a moment, here in quite a few moments, because we're going to discuss if you remember things and if you don't have repression. We're going to discuss the process in that vein first. So you want to find out what the dominant trigger is emotionally, and then you want to ask yourself or the patient, when is the last time I felt that way? That is a standard shadow work-based question. And then you want to pay attention. Normally, if you have a very resistant patient, or if you are the resistant patient or client, you will say, I don't know, I feel that way all the time. That is a common block and problem that people have that tells you they may or may not be ready for an alchemical process. They may or may not be ready for regression or integration. If you run into that, you're going to want to, and we haven't had a chance to discuss this much, you want to pull them through the resistance process instead, which, by the way, is located on my YouTube channel. I'm going to give you a brief way to prepare a very resistant patient or client, or prepare your very resistant inner child to get ready for aura alchemy. And this is called the resistance process. If you get to that place where you say, when is the last time I felt that way? And they specifically say, I don't know, I felt that way all my life. You want to say, when is the last time you can specifically remember? And then say, I don't know, every day. You want to identify what that feeling is. Okay? So someone asked a question, your most recent or initial memories. Okay, that question is it for me. Never mind. I can so easily get distracted when I'm reading your chat. You want to go into the resistance process instead, which involves breaking apart what it is your inner critic is actually hiding from. At which point, if they're scared to go into it, you would say, okay, all right, you feel that way all the time. What's so bad about that? I created the resistance process as a spinoff from the Byron Katie process called The Work. For those of you who don't know that, you should YouTube it. She's very good. She's older than me and an elder that I respect very much. The difference between her process and mine is that I explored it in 1,000 different ways because I am the most resistant person under the face of the sun. I did not want to go into my memories and I would just shut down. So when you get to that state, again, you would ask yourself, all right, what's so bad about that? You feel that way your whole life? Okay, you can't remember when the last time you felt that way? Go into that feeling. What is that feeling? Identify it. A lot of times they'll say, well, I don't know what it is. It's just a feeling. So then you want to say, how do you feel in your body? How does this emotion sit in your body? Where does this emotion sit in your body? Resistant people are incredibly motivated to remain resistant. Therefore, you want to pull their emotions into a body process. This is very somatic in nature. So then you would ask, where do you feel that emotion in your body? And most of the time, it's going to be anywhere between the bottom of the solar plexus all the way up to the top of the throat chakra. So sometimes they'll say, I just feel a knot in my stomach, or I just feel a tightness in my chest, or I feel like someone's squeezing my throat. Those are common patterns that come up in resistance. So then you would ask, okay, what does that feeling mean to you? If you had to feel that way pretty much for good, that emotion right there, even though we can't identify it yet, if you had to feel it for good, why would that be bad? That's a specific question that I use in the resistance process. And then they're going to say, well, it's obvious why it would be bad, because it would suck. So you would say, all right, well, how would it suck? How would it be bad? How and why are the two dominant questions in the resistance process. You want to guide them through and facilitate a very specific means of having them explore in their minds. Tell me, what are you seeing when you think it would be bad? How would your life change if it would be bad? Why would that change be bad? What would your life look like on a daily basis if you had to experience this emotion permanently? This emotion is now yours. You get to own it. And have them explore all of the possibly scary components of what life would be if they had that emotion. That's not fun. They're going to be resistant to it. Most people come to me and they say, I'm resistant to your resistance process. Here's where it gets easier. Then you could say, how would it be good? This is a part that Byron Katie doesn't explore, but I do. I took it about 1,000 steps further because of curiosity, getting tired of my own resistant inner critic. And then, of course, if you have a very resistant inner child that you're working with within yourself, or if the patient's inner child is very resistant, they're going to say, there is absolutely not one good freaking thing about that emotion ever, ever, ever. Okay? That's about 90% of what you're going to get. So just take that a step further and say, all right, what could you stand to learn from it? That is the third question I utilize in the resistant process. And then that just makes them think. It pulls them out of inner child space and back up into the inner critic process, in the inner critic space again. And then they're going to say, well, okay, I'm not sure what I meant to learn from it. And then they'll start to think about it. You know, for instance, the last time I was resistant to anxiety, and I said, why would it be bad? And I'm like, because I can't get anything done ever and ever and ever, every single day. Why would that be bad? Because I have some very important paths here, in my opinion, and I really am motivated to help people, and then I would not be helping people or myself. And then when I asked, why would that be good? I'm like, nothing good about it. And then when I asked, what could I stand to learn from it? I said, well, because then I would be forced to face my emotions. I would be forced to face my emotions for once, and then maybe I would realize that not everything is out to hurt me. Sometimes you'll get a client who's aware enough and enlightened enough to put that together and say, okay, maybe there is a specific reason. Maybe there is something that I meant to learn from it. Not often. You're only about in the 75% range there. Okay, so within the rest of the time, you're going to get clients who come forth and say, I still don't see that I could possibly learn this. Sucks. More resistance. If you get that, then you say, okay, you've explored why it would be bad. What's the worst thing that could happen, right? If that's bad, and it's bad permanently, what is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen with this very bad emotion? Say, for instance, in my anxiety, if I had to experience it every single day and it's now mine forever and ever and ever, and it's always permeating my existence, and I can't get anything done, and all those things that my inner critic was telling me, then you would begin to explore, okay, so that's bad. What is actually going to happen? And here's the question. What is the worst case possible outcome? What is the worst case scenario for that? What is the outcome? What is the worst case scenario outcome for if that's bad? All right? What are the other outcomes in between. You've got the why would it be good? No one thinks it's good. Why would it be bad? And what is the worst case possible scenario outcome? What is the next most believable step for something that may not be bad? Say if the worst case didn't happen, what are the possible other steps that could happen that may or may not be bad? And may not be bad as your worst case scenario. So what you're doing is you're getting people to visualize scenarios of all of the possible places to which their inner critic could go. All of the possible scenarios through which their inner critic could ruminate in the worst ways. So, for example, when you go to the panic scenario, and I say, okay, I'm panicking. What is the worst case possible scenario? Well, I'm going to die. It feels like my heart is going to explode. And then you would ask, okay, what if that doesn't happen? What is another scenario that maybe wouldn't be as bad as that? You're taking a step backwards. You're taking them from the worst case scenario into a next most believable step that may not be as bad. So what else could happen if I didn't die? What else could happen that may be bad? What else could happen that may be slightly less bad? What else could happen that may be slightly less bad than that? What else could happen that could be slightly neutral? What you're doing is you're guiding them backwards from worst case scenarios and getting them comfortable with higher frequency of emotions. You're moving them into neutrality because it's safer than trying to pull them into the aura alchemy process where you get to that point where you ask what would you rather feel instead at the end of the process, and they're not ready to say joy, bliss, celebration, unconditional love, agape, forgiveness, all those things that are unattainable because they're too resistant. You're working them so that by the time they get into the aura alchemy process, they could be more ready to choose a very high frequency of emotion because they've already felt all the possible worst case scenarios, and then they've backed themselves up and ruminated the crap out of everything. So my resistance process is rumination at its finest. You are culminating feeling signatures that you've never really allowed yourself to feel before because your inner critic is thinking. So what we do is we work with the inner critic and we say, oh, you want to think? Let's put you in the playpen. Let's put you in a sandbox full of particles of possible scenarios. And now, before you know it, you are feeling. What's so bad about it? Guide them through all of those possible scenarios. And then here's the final set of questions. Go through every scenario again and say, is it true? That's the Byron Katie part. That's the part I love about her. I incorporated that into my process too. And they're going to say at that point, after having experienced every single thing, chances are about half the time they're going to lose resistance and say, you know what? It's probably not true. You know what? I'm not sure that those worst case scenarios are true. Even if they say I'm uncertain if it's true, that means they're ready for our alchemy. So that's how you get someone through all of those possible scenarios. You're visualizing and you're holding a safe space. Here is a problem that I've noticed when you're going through the aura alchemy process and you get either your own resistant inner critic or you get a resistant patient and they just stop and they just don't go any further because they don't have any memories. Sometimes, even if you go through the resistance process and then you lead them back into step 1 of the aura alchemy process, which is when is the last time you felt that way, they may get to that. About 50% of the time I've noticed that they get to that and they're able to say it was at work yesterday, or they're able to say when I breathed 5 minutes ago because I'm still experiencing it right now if they're in the moment of the trigger. But what they're not able to get past at that point is still, when is the first time I felt that way, which is question number 2 in the aura alchemy process. When they're not able to get to the when is the first time I felt that way, you're going to go into my adjacent alternative aura alchemy process, which involves focusing on light and breathing in through your chakra systems as opposed to memories itself. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So someone asked, is this scenario work more mental or more emotional? When you are in stage 1, when you have a resistant patient or client, it is more mental. First, they have to be safe with experiencing the mental before they can go into the emotions. The brain has to calm down before the mind can allow you to sink into a feeling. Okay? If the brain is overactive, it is an inner critic process at that point, and you cannot do aura alchemy with a resistant patient. It's just virtually impossible. Okay? You want to get past the resistance. That's why I'm constantly telling people we need resistance process first. About 60% of people who come to me, if they have resistance, they're not going to get past anything at all until we go through the resistance process first. And it doesn't take long. It's only about 15 to 20 minutes to get through the resistance process if you know how to accurately do this. If you want to learn more about how to adequately talk to people during the resistance process, you should research a technique called circling. Circling is when two people talk to each other, and someone got this, the original creators of circling noticed that out in the wild, that fear was a big thing, that the fight or flight response was actually something that could either help animals or really, really cause some damage. And they started to apply the same theory to humans. So animals in the wild, when they are afraid, if there's a threat, say if this is an animal and this is his territory, and another animal is out here and they come, da, 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 little walking around, little bunny hopping through the forest, and oh my gosh, a wolf territory. Okay, and the wolf is sitting there with their babies. The wolf may not be scared of the bunny, right? But the wolf may start to growl and defend her territory and be like, grrr, you know? So this probably isn't the best scenario because bunnies and wolves just really, let's do wolf and wolf. Okay, forget the bunny. Wolf comes across another wolf. Dominance meets dominance, okay? Inner critic in the center, inner child over here. So basically speaking, if inner critic or inner child, depending upon whether they're in the center defending their territory or they're over here extraneously, if either one feels threatened, normally they're not just going to come at each other and just roar. That's normally not what happens because of the fight or flight response. We are built with a limbic brain system that teaches us from those areas of our brains, which we still have because we have not evolved out of it. We're still in a human state that's very somewhere between 3D and 4D right now, that we are still operating from the reptilian brain, unfortunately. Therefore, what happens is the brain secretes chemicals, endorphins from the adrenal system that rushes through our bodies and causes us to either fight or flight. So we are either going to roar or we're going to kind of back up and sort of run away. What humans do is something in the middle, and I've noticed that wolves do this as well, and bears do this as well. Basically speaking, if a wolf comes across another wolf, and say this mama wolf here is here defending her cubs, and she's like, I'm not scared of you, but, my cubs are here, and she kind of gets a little growly, and this wolf, what they do is they circle. This one will begin to circle that one. And they're like, okay, I am testing the parameters of this territory. Okay, this is what your inner critic does with your inner child. This is something that's going on within a perceived notion of fractured components of the subconscious. So essentially speaking, if the inner child is feeling afraid, the inner critic is going to circle the inner child, just like this dominant wolf would circle the mom with her cubs. And they're like, okay, I'm testing whether or not I can go in because I might get my throat ripped out because this mama is sitting here with her babies. So this wolf is like, and they get a little closer, and then the circle gets smaller, and then they get a little closer, and then the circle gets smaller. And if they notice that they haven't had that mom wolf come after them at that point in time, then they start to get a little bit more confident getting closer and a little bit more confident getting closer until they come in. Okay? And then at that point, then nature can take over or they're going to be friends. We have to decide at that point. So this is what you're doing in the resistance process. The inner critic is circling the inner child, or the inner child is circling the inner critic, depending upon which one is more afraid. So essentially speaking, you're getting that client to face themselves naturally and carefully with these line of questions. Every time you say, what's so bad about that? Is that true? Okay, what's so good about that? What can I stand to learn from it? Okay, what's the worst case scenario there? What bad action would happen? What good action would happen? You are circling. That's what you're doing. You're getting them more and more comfortable, not with you, but with themselves. And then the fear walls are going to come down and down and down. And as you get into that circle, they're either going to release and you will feel an energy wall begin to come down, or they will keep the wall up. In which case, if you feel that the wall is still there and you're really getting resistance, that's the point in time when you've got some deeper work to do. At that point in time, you're either going to refer them to the Beyond the Human Shadow process. This is where quantum healing hypnosis might come in, even though I don't do that. I do a very different technique. You might want to refer them to a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. You might want to refer them to any quantum healing in nature where they're going to go back into other existences within other realms, in other lifetimes, because this may not come from their human aspects at that point in time. Okay? So, or you can refer them to my Beyond the Human Shadow process, which is under the processes section of my website. It's a lot like quantum healing, except it's more shamanic in nature. Okay, without all the specific techniques that like Dolores would use per se, but more shamanic techniques that I get from my elders. Either way, at that point, if the wall is there, you're not meant to come in with a bulldozer. That's not what works with these clients that are going into these types of techniques. It's not going to work with your own inner child as well. What you want to do is let them know that you're there to be on the other side of the wall, but that you're not going to be knocking it down. That essentially speaking, you're there to just sort of knock on it a little bit and say, you know what, I'm here. I'm here for you. You might want to do it. This is another little technique that I have with very resistant clients. I have them put their hand on their chest, and then I will have them close their eyes and say, okay, talk to their inner child as if they can visualize that inner child being someone separate from them. And then the reason why I say this is because many resistant patients perceive their own inner children as threats and their inner critic as a threat as well. So you want to say, I would like for you to visualize your inner child as a separate being from you. Put your hand on your chest. Visualize her in however she presents herself to you. Very visual clients will be able to get this image in their minds. This is a technique that gets them past resistance. Not so visual clients, you want to tell them what you are visualizing or sensing or getting precognitively or clairsentiently. So depending upon your gifts, you're either going to get a vision of how their inner child represents herself to you, or you're going to get a knowingness, you're going to get like a thought process of what their inner child might be trying to say. But either way, you want to see if you can get them to visualize the inner child as a separate being. A lot of times when I do this, I will visualize a person's inner child and I'm like, okay, I see them curled up in a corner. I see them with a whole box. I saw one last week crawled inside of a cardboard box. You know, she had a core belief of feeling abandoned. And she felt like she was about to be homeless, so she was scared of that. So she had placed her inner child inside of a cardboard box already, even though she's still out of home. It was quite sad. So essentially speaking, you want to visualize the inner child as extraneous from the person and just tell them to close their eyes, put their hand on their heart, and talk to their inner child as if she is a separate component of themselves, a separate being. And you would want to say at that point, I am completely here with you right now. It is completely safe to feel this emotion. It is completely safe to accept what I am feeling. Those three statements, those are the statements I use to get past really, really strong walls. And then you just want to take it a step further and see if you can get back into the when is the last time you felt that way scenario. And then you're probably going to get a memory, even if it's something as, well, yesterday I was at work and I was standing in front of the printer and someone walked by and, you know, mentioned that they thought I'd gained a little weight, you know, and then they'll just come up with some random scenario and then they'll get resistant again. And then they'll be like, but that can't be it. That's not why I'm sick. That's not why I have dark night of the soul. Oh, you want me to repeat that? Okay. Put the hand on the chest. Ask them to speak to the inner child as if she is a separate component of their being and to visualize her as separately. And then the three things to say is, I am completely here with you right now. It is completely safe to accept how you're feeling. It is completely safe to feel what you are feeling. Those are the three things that I say, one behind the other in any specific order. It doesn't matter. And they kind of just need to keep repeating that. I am completely here with you right now is the one that I like the most. You know, I'm completely here with you right now. It is completely safe to accept what I'm feeling. It is completely safe to feel what you're feeling. If they are visualizing the inner child as a part of them, I just use I am. It is completely safe to feel what I'm feeling. If they have effectively separated, then I would say it is completely safe to feel what you are feeling. It is completely safe to accept what you're feeling. I am completely here with you right now. So depending upon if they feel separated or not, you can change the jargon of that a little bit. Okay? Did everybody get that? Those are 3 important resistant breakers right there that get you past emotional walls that prevent you from going deeper. Once you get into the when is the last time you felt that way, you want to go back into that line of questioning. They're going to get a specific memory, and you want to ask them to get as specific and nitty-gritty about that memory as possible. Tell them to get into it and give them the worst case scenario about how they felt during that memory. And you would ask, all right, that's terrible. How did that memory make you feel? All right, what was bad about that memory? How did it make you feel? And then you want to pay attention to see if their emotion shifted. For instance, if you started out and you identified with that emotion as being, okay, they started out feeling anxious, and then when they got that memory, suddenly they felt shame. Sometimes it will shift, and in this process, you want to follow how the emotions shift. So then you want to observe and take notice if they say that they feel something different than what they started out with as being the trigger emotion. Write it down for yourself. Okay, so I always write it down like it's like a little line, like a little linear line. We started out with anxiety, and then the last time you felt that way, it shifted to shame. Then you want to ask them, where do you feel this emotion in your body? Okay, where do you feel it? You want to have them explore this emotion. This is the somatic part of oral alchemy. They want to be aware of how it is affecting their physical. So at that point, they could say, I feel it in my chest. They don't often get very specific because people are still resistant at this point. So then you want to incorporate a line of questioning that connects them to their bodies. Connect the physical with the emotional. So if they say, I'm feeling it in my chest, which is a common thing that I've noticed, chest, belly button, throat, hands, feet, those are some common areas. You would say, okay, well, how do you feel in those areas? Is it crushing? Is it stinging? Is it sharp? Is it dull? Is it absolutely terrible? How does it feel? How? Remember that. Okay? And then once you get into that, you want to go through the memory and let them effectively remember it as fully as possible. And then you want to ask the second question in the process, when is the first time you felt that way? If you have broken past all barriers of resistance, they're going to go back to either childhood or they're going to go back to the very first relationship that they've ever had in early adulthood. Normally it'll go one of those 2 places. If they've lost a lot of resistance, you'll know because the less resistance you have in a patient, the further they go back. Some people I've got, yep, that happened when I was 3 years old, and I remember sitting in a chair and I was looking at the stars, and I remember feeling, I don't belong here. Yeah, you'll get that with people who have lost resistance. So let them go back as far as possible and just say, when is the absolute first time ever in your life that you felt that way? And if they give something that, say, in mid-college, and you know it's not the first time they felt that way, this is very important. Do not invalidate it. The brain needs to go where the brain needs to go because there are specific shifts that need to occur in these processes that line up with certain memories that trace back to each other and that connect in the core belief system with each other. So if they don't go all the way back and say, for example, you get the type of client that's going to go into their mid-20s in the middle of college and they're like, I had a really terrible scenario at a party, let them go back, validate it, ask them what was bad about it, ask them what is the worst part of feeling that, and then ask where are you feeling that in your body. Pay attention to the shifts of the emotion. How does that feel in your body? Go through those line of questionings. And then when is the first time you felt that way? Because chances are it's going to shift again. At that point, they could shift from shame into feeling something even lesser. You will notice the feeling signature is getting lesser in frequency and more difficult to manage. Like you'll notice that if they started out feeling angry, that by the end of this process, it goes all the way back to feeling something that feels a lot like powerlessness and futility. Okay? So just let them keep going backwards until they get to the closest memory in their childhood that they can possibly ever imagine. And at which point you're going to get more resistance and they're going to say, yeah, it's this is what's coming up, but it just doesn't make sense. That can't possibly be what's keeping me sick. Validate that they might be feeling that way. Don't ever invalidate. Make sure to validate everything that a client feels because it's real to them. And even if you know that it's resistance, it's important to let these emotions shift between you and the client in a safe manner. Okay? So They're going to go back to memories in childhood eventually, and when you get there, pay attention to every single emotional shift and have them connect it somatically to their bodies. And then when you get there to the closest memory possible, then you want to ask them if you could have anyone, living or dead, spirit guide, angel, human or animal, whoever you feel safe with, make sure you go down the list of possible scenarios that could make them feel safe. Who would you have with you to make you feel safer in this memory? Who could make you feel better? A lot of times, people that feel really resistant will go towards a childhood pet. Some of my clients connect a lot better to animals than they do humans, so they will bring in a childhood pet that used to make them feel safe during certain abuse-related scenarios. So that's okay. Let them bring in the childhood dog that made them feel safe during that time. And they may say, well, is it okay that they're dead? It's my mom and I miss her. Is it okay that she's dead? Is that disturbing her? They will formulate all sorts of resistant things to ask you. And what you want to say is everything is valid. Your brain and your heart are doing this for a reason. We go with who makes you feel safe. Okay? They could say Jesus Christ, let them. If they say Lucifer, let them. Validate, validate, and validate some more. Very important to keep a client safe during these processes. Okay? And what you want to do is see how close they let their safe person come into their memory. You want to make sure the client's eyes are completely closed at this point in time, because at this point in time, this is a lot like regression, except more in the beta stages. Okay, they're coming in and out. They're going in and out between beta and theta at this point, and you want to try to keep them there. All right? If they open their eyes, very gently and lovingly ask that they maintain a closed eye state. And if they can't, if they start to feel unsafe, have them repeat the process of putting the hand back on the chest and say, I am completely here with you right now. It is completely safe to accept what I'm feeling. I'm completely safe in these emotions right now. Okay? And have them close their eyes again. At this point in time, you want to go into the memory with the safe person that they chose, in between them and the lack of safety, in between them and the being that is causing the trigger in this memory. See how close that safe person can come into this memory. If they can, a lot of times I will feel led and intuitively led to guide the safe person to walk up to the inner child or the child in that memory and hold their hands and look into their eyes. Sometimes the child in that memory, the patient's child, will crawl into the lap of the safe person. Any of that is perfectly acceptable. Anything that is safe is perfectly acceptable if they're feeling safe. Okay? So if you're being intuitively led, it's very, very important. You don't have to be intuitive to do this process, but most of you are. So if you are being intuitively led to say your grandmother wants you to hold her hand, your grandmother is a safe person and she wants to hold both of your hands, she wants to put her arms around you, she wants to know if it's okay if she sits on the edge of the bed, do the circling with the safe person and see how close they can get to the inner child in the memory safely, a little bit at a time. For very resistant clients, I am always led to guide the safe person in slowly, and I will say, okay, your grandmother just walked into the room. Is it okay that she stands at the door? Okay, your grandmother just walked slowly to your bed and she's asking, is it okay to sit down? Your grandmother is asking, is it okay that she gently rubs your back a little bit? Your grandmother is asking, do you now want to completely sit in your lap? Like, we don't just jump to sitting in the lap with very resistant, scared clients. Okay, we want to do a little bit of circling there as well. Okay? Safety is key. It is so, so vital in these processes. So as you're going through that process, again, you want them to maintain a state of closed eyes and to focus on their breath. At which point you want the safe person to begin to speak to the inner child in this memory and to validate how they might be feeling. Examples of validation might be your grandmother is saying that it was not okay that you were raped. It is not okay that this is happening to you. This is not safe, and it is never okay. It's not okay, if it's something, a small little memory, like someone got bullied on a bus, but not terribly. Even then, the grandmother may say, you know what, bullying is never okay, even in this particular manner that you thought was not so terrible. It's never okay because the way that you felt was unsafe. So I validate that that's not okay, that this happened to you. You want to validate that the person felt unsafe. Identify how they felt. Okay, this is the memory. How are you feeling in this memory? And then you validate how they felt by the safe person. The safe person comes in and validates how they felt and validated that it was not okay for that to happen. Okay. At this point, you want to ask what color is the emotion that they were experiencing. So for people who are going into their negative imprints, say if it was futility, that was one of mine for a while. Futility for me, I would say it was always dark burgundy, almost black. So you would ask the client, okay, what are you feeling? They're going to say, if it's futility, for example, you would say, what color is that feeling? Can you visualize it? If they can't visualize it, okay, what color came to your mind? If they're precognitive, what color came right into your thought process? Okay. And then you would ask, what would you rather feel instead of this futility? This normally gets to the point where you've broken through so many barriers and so much resistance that they're going to say, well, I want to feel safe. That's not always what they're looking for, but you don't want to invalidate it either. Get a good intuitive gauge of, is this really the core belief that they want? Some clients who really don't know what they're ready to feel next, but they think they do, after they've experienced something terrible like futility, desolation, despair, some of these really terrible feeling signatures and imprints, will jump to joy, unconditional love, safety, liberation, things that are just far-fetched out there that they probably may or may not be ready for. So here's what you want to do. You want to make sure that that is the core belief that they really want without invalidation. This is how you do that. You would say, okay, you want safety. If you were to feel safe right now, what would safety look like to you? How would this memory change to look safe? And then you want to allow them to be guided into a process where perhaps their safe person causes them to feel safety. They would say, well, perhaps my parents are screaming and my grandmother's here and she's telling them, hey, this 3-year-old child really doesn't need to be around this screaming. Could you guys tone it down? Whatever the reason is, a 3-year-old shouldn't be exposed to this. She doesn't feel safe. She wants to feel safety. Could you tone it down? The grandmother might say, well, I just want to take this child and take her and raise her myself. Don't worry if these scenarios that they create don't seem valid. Don't worry if the grandmother comes in and says, yeah, you know what, they're not your parents. I'm your parent now. Don't worry if the scenario is not feasible. If the grandmother says, I'm taking you to Mars now. You're safe. Woohoo. Whatever the scenario is, you want to validate it and allow for it as long as it does represent safety, and allow them to act it out in a very visual form where they say, okay, my grandmother wants to do that. She wants to take me into a field of flowers and we're going to go hug Bambi. Whatever the case is, allow for it, please, and let them get very visual about it. Ask them, what does that look like? How are you feeling? Does that feel great? What do you hear? Birds? Do you hear sounds? You're in a meadow. What do the flowers smell like? Get visual and use your senses to incorporate an addition of this new memory because you are changing that client's timeline. This is a component of somatic experiencing called timeline therapy. Some of this is used in quantum healing techniques as well. So you want to build up that experience into a newer, safer memory, and then you want to say, all right, you're safe. How do you feel now that you're safe? Now that we've done all this and we've changed your timeline, how do you feel now? And they're going to say, oh my gosh, I absolutely feel joyful. Then they're ready for then they're ready for the joy. So then you say, okay, would you rather feel that joy instead of the futility that you formerly felt? Then you know that it's a real core belief. So initially when they go for joy and celebration and safety and all these things, you want to ask, okay, you did all that. We went through the memories. Now that you have safety, how do you feel now? And then they're going to say something that's a little bit more doable, or they're still going to jump to the very high frequency ones. Then allow for it. Then go ahead and say, okay, then this is the new core belief. Sometimes though, they're not going to jump up to joy and celebration and bliss and agape and unconditional love and all these beautiful things. Sometimes they're going to say, oh my gosh, I feel like relief. And you're going to say, is that what you're looking for? That could be the core belief that they're looking for, instead of all those other things that you think look all flowery. So pay attention. At which point you could say, all right, now you have relief. What color is that for you? At which point you want to guide them through a breathing process. This is the pranic portion of aura alchemy, where you say, okay, relief. What color is that for you? And if they say lavender, let that be. Sometimes they're going to say, I work with a client today and she went towards something and she said it's kind of seafoam green with a little bit of pink and some yellows. Remember, don't invalidate. It's all valid. Go for it. Very visual people will get circles of color. Some of them will get very iridescent shades of rainbow. Some of them will get sparkles. Some of them will get all kinds of stuff. Go with it. Okay? And then I would like for you to ask them to breathe it in through the tip of their crown chakra and then to exhale it all the way through their bodies. Okay? And then continue breathing in that process. This is the visualization part of the process. Then this is the part where I often incorporate sound. I like to bring out a Tibetan bowl or a tuning fork. You don't always have to have sound, but it's really, we're getting the Yeshua voice again. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to try to ground for a second and see if that helps. It's an echo too. I can't echo. It's not always Yeshua, by the way. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just my guides working through me. And it's just channel. Just the nature of what happens. Trans-channeling. Not trans-channeling, but trans. I sound like an alien. I am an alien. You don't know that yet? Is it getting better? Okay, I'm going to reload. Hang in there and I'll be right back. Okay. Is it back? Is it better? Sound check. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes is a little bit of grounding. So yeah, I started to visualize breathing in the color, and of course that's when my frequency goes, woo! Yeah, no, down, girl, down. Okay. So what you want to do at that point in time is instruct the client to kindly breathe in the color that they chose that represented their new core belief. So say their new core belief is relief and it was lavender. You would say, please breathe in the core belief and color lavender in through your crown chakra and exhale it all the way down through your chakra systems and continue breathing in this manner. At which point in time, this is when I like to incorporate sound, and I like the number 3. Alchemy is very, very, very wonderful when you incorporate things in 3s because this is a universal law. So then you want to guide them through the transmutation part of the process. So you want to ding the Tibetan bowl or the tuning fork or whatever sound you have. If you're going to chant 3 times, whatever it is, however you want to incorporate the sound, this is the sound part of the process. And you want to make that sound 3 times. Say it's the bowl. Ding, ding, ding. And then you want to say, please repeat after me in your mind. You don't want to have them do it out loud because it's very distracting. We're in an inner child space. We're in a deep space right now, and voice normally causes them to come out of it. So you want to keep them in that space. So just say, please repeat after me in your mind if you accept. It's very important for you to say if you accept because transmutation is still a very free will process, and you want to make sure that you are not superseding their soul's intent at any point in time. And then you ding the bell again, once, ding. I invoke the I am in me to transmute futility into relief. And I'm just using the core beliefs that we were working with a while ago. So whatever ones they go through is what you're going to insert in that blanket. And then you say again, ding the bell again. Softly, please. Don't ding the crap out of your Tibetan bowl. I have woken clients from some very deep somatic states that way unintentionally when this process was in trial and error. Softly ding the bell. So then you ask them to repeat. You say again, ding. I invoke the I am in me to transmute futility into relief. Ding. I invoke the I am in me to transmute futility into relief. And then you remind them to please continue breathing in the color that represents their new core belief. And this is the fun part. This is where I began to consider if I would like to incorporate a shamanic process. So then I asked them, would you like me to invite in the spirits of your ancestors? This process is also complete within the Beyond the Human Shadow process, where we call in the spirits of the ancestors. And if they say yes, you want to go ahead and guide them through another process, and you say it again. If you accept, repeat after me, and with your eyes closed and focusing on your breath, visualize, and then call them into a visual. Then you would say, I invoke the I Am in me to call upon the spirits of my ancestors. Ding. Sound every time you say something, okay? Sound incorporates and just really sets these new core beliefs right into motion where they should be, okay? Then you would say, I invoke the I Am in me to call upon the spirits of my ancestors in a sacred shape of which only I am aware. This is what you guide the client to say. And then you keep doing that. At that point, I like to just really be very softly incorporating the bowl as a background method of sound that keeps them in a very somatic place. It keeps them regressed, okay? That way clients don't open their eyes and kind of get freaked out. And then I would just guide them through a visualization where I would say, please visualize your ancestors around you. They now connect their hands. And as they connect their hands, breathe with your ancestors as one. Focus on your breath. Breathe in the color that represents the new core belief relief that you chose. At this point in time, if you are a musical person, you can incorporate chant, or you can simply allow the bowl to do the work, and then ask them to have their ancestors simultaneously lift their hands to the sky. This is a very empowering notion in shamanism, that when you call back your power, when in a sacred shape surrounded by your ancestors, you call back your power from north, east, west, and south. So this is the final stage of the process. And this is the shamanic portion. And you could say, please visualize your ancestors connecting their hands, and as you breathe as one with your ancestors, you lift your hands to the sky together. We now call upon the spirits of your ancestors to call back your power, and if you accept, repeat with me along with your ancestors. Ding the bell. I invoke the I Am in me to call upon the spirits of my ancestors to call back my power from the north, east, west, and south. Ding again. I invoke the I Am in me to call back my power through the spirits of my ancestors from the north, east, west, and south. One more time, everything in 3. Ding. I invoke the I Am in me to call upon the spirits of my ancestors to call back my power from the north, east, west, and south. At that point in time, you would have them thank their ancestors. You want to always offer gratitude at the end of an ancestral shamanic ceremony. So you would say, we call upon the spirits of our ancestors to offer thanks to each other as we close this ceremony. And then you want to have them continue breathing and ask them to center in their breath behind the belly button in the center of their Merkaba. So you would say, please breathe in white light in through the top of your head. Exhale it all the way down into your Merkaba or solar plexus center. And now reground and recenter. Feel your body. Notice your breath as it comes through your hands, through your feet, through all of your chakra systems, incorporating your spirit back into your body safely. So this is how you reground a client. Okay? At which point you can ask them to open their eyes slowly as they feel comfortable. At this point, I would say, please open your eyes, but only when you are ready, you may open your eyes and reground into your body safely. And then normally they'll sit there for a few minutes. It's a very deep thing, and you don't want to bring a client too quickly out of that somatic of an experience because normally they're in theta at that stage. So, and sometimes they go straight into other realms. Sometimes they can even go into the somnambulistic state, but that depends upon how safe you've made your client. So, essentially speaking, you want to slowly reground them. If they don't feel safe opening their eyes and regrounding, you want to gently ask them to continue incorporating their breath and just say, focus on your breath. Bring your breath all the way down to your body. I would like for you to put your focus on your breath in your hands. I would like to put your focus on your breath in your feet. Please feel your feet as they connect to the earth and imagine that the earth is the land. Imagine that the earth is grass. Feel the sun on the grass. slowly awaken to the feeling of the grass up underneath your feet. You're grounding into your body. At this point, you want to go all the way through, the grounding process with the client before they open their eyes. If they still aren't opening their eyes, keep grounding them until they're ready. And then you can invite them gently and see if they're ready. Okay. This process takes about an hour normally. If you're really, really good at it and the client is really also not so resistant, you can do it as quick as 30 to 45 minutes, but I would suggest anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half tops. Okay. So someone is asking a question. Do you do this over the phone with them as well as in person? You can do it over the phone. I do it because I've been doing it for so many years that I'm used to doing it over the phone, but I generally really want to gauge intuitively how resistant the client is. I don't advocate doing it on the phone right away. I advocate in person and Skype. Okay, it can be done either way. But you really want to build a comfort level with a client when you're going into these kind of regressions. Okay. Let's get to your questions. I will also take people on screen at this point in time. So for anybody that wants to come on screen, Jem, you're more than welcome to go ahead and put them on screen for anybody that wants to. And I will also begin taking questions that are here in the viewer questions and suggestions box. I'm learning what this process is about. I did shave though. Okay, well come on screen with your bad self if you shaved. This is this client of mine. We had this personal joke every time he comes to one of my process teachings, on Spookcast. He'll be like, "I'm not going on screen today because I didn't shave," or "I am going on screen today because I did shave." So yes, David, you're more than welcome to put your shaved self right on screen and ask us a question. Let's see. I'll put you on screen. Let's see if I can. I don't know if I can. No, you don't have any. No, there we go. Okay. Hey.
Hi, Pam. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I've been watching this, and I don't really. It's hard for me to say if I have any use for this at all because I don't. I would hate to tell somebody that they feel or how do they feel about such and such when I don't have anything to gauge it by. I don't really have any. I don't know. I don't have your abilities or I don't know some of the other abilities some people have with it, but I I would know just enough to get me in trouble, I think.
Yeah, but you don't have to be intuitive to go through the process. For instance, if you can't get a good idea of how they're feeling, remember you use the technique called circling, to go in and ask them, okay, well, how does that feel? How does that feel in your body? And if they still don't know, then you could say, all right, well, what does that mean to you? If you had to feel that way permanently, what does that mean to you? So you're still working in the inner critic to sort of get them to address how they're feeling. I don't often tell a client how they're feeling unless they're really, really stuck. And then I'll say, does that feel a little bit like this? Do you identify with that feeling? Is this what you're feeling? I'm very careful, about trying to tell someone what they're feeling. I want them to identify what they're feeling. You don't need to be intuitive to do that. You just know the proper techniques.
Okay. Um,
Confirmation.
my phone makes a weird noise. I did have a question on your uh, list there about astral projection, trying to figure out what I'm blocking. 'Cause I even had Cody try to come and yank me out of my body last night, and he says, you're just not that aware when you're sleeping. He's like,
He's a really
yeah,
astral. He's a very avid astral traveler. For those of you who don't know him, he's really, really good at it. Very ether-based being, and you, David, are a very grounded, type of really earth-based being.
yeah.
My question for those of you who, and for you too, David, and for those of you who want to astral project is, I really want you to examine your intent because for you, I feel like you're looking for something that feels a little bit like joy or celebration or fun or something that feels a little bit less boring than being human. So advise me, like, why do you want to astral project? What is your intention?
I think honestly, I thought about that. For decades, I've thought about that. And I think it's to validate my core beliefs. I think it's to validate how I actually, a lot of people are brought up in a Christian or a Jewish household or a Muslim, whatever. when you have a core belief that your parents kind of drum into you, you know? And I lost that very early. And
Okay.
I thought that being able to astral project, um, being able to astral project would give me the validation that one, I can get out of my body, that I don't actually, I'm not, you know, anchored in this body, and
Yeah.
two, that maybe I can see other. I fed you, dog. That I can see.
It's so cute.
That I can, you know, I can see other entities. I can see other, you know, other things.
So
Now
how
I'm
does
losing
that
track of
validate
what
your
I was
core
saying.
belief? If you're astral projecting, how do you think that's going to validate your core belief?
Well, I think that if I can, I don't know, seeing is believing type of thing, maybe
Hmm.
that if I can see that, hey, I'm out of my body. I'm interacting with other beings. I am what? Hey, what does she want? What do you want?
She wants me to talk to her.
You talk to her? Go ahead.
Yeah,
I don't.
I
People
haven't
are
talked to
paying
her
for
the
this. I don't.
whole time. Yeah.
I don't want to. Yeah, I'll
She
I'll
also
get it
wants you to get up and play. There's something that she wants you to toss around. This kind of toy that she wants you to play with her.
out. Go get your toy. Anyway,
She's like, no, you go get it.
yeah, your
But
toy.
yeah, someone mentioned in chat, she responded when you said interact with other beings. She's like, interact with me, darn it. No, but seriously
No,
though,
but
what do you think?
if I try to pet her, she's gonna do that. She's gonna go away. She's gonna back off just because she's playing. I know she's playing. Anyway, I'm getting off track. What my whole thing, it's been a goal for decades to astral project. I feel like um, I feel like I'm blocking it, but I'm not quite sure what I can do to what, or if I even should be doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's okay though. I feel like if you sort of release that a little bit, and I'm not trying to invalidate you, but if you just say, okay, well, what is the intention I'm trying to set? You know, if you really do believe that you're wanting to validate your core beliefs by astral traveling, identify what those core beliefs are and work within the hypnagogic state and then set an intention. Set your intention a lot more clearly as opposed to focusing on the techniques that we've taught so many times in the classes about how to get out of your body. Focus instead on your intention and just say, okay, I would like to astral project to validate my core belief of whatever,
You
whatever
know,
you think your core belief is.
it's funny because another second Anna actually said what she got in her head was that you need to lose the fear. And I was like, well, the fear of what? You know, I really wanted to do this. I don't know what I want to.
Do you,
I don't know what I'm fearing.
do you think you have fear?
Huh?
Do you think
I'm
you
sorry.
have
What?
fear? Do you think
No,
that you have?
well,
Oh, then don't
I don't
focus on
think
that.
so.
I don't think you have it.
Okay.
Yeah. What's Puppy's core beliefs? Puppy's core belief is I'm abandoned if I'm not played with right now. I am invalidated.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get her a session just for her
Oh
with
God.
you.
She would be fun. I can already tell she would be fun to work with. All right. Do you have any other questions about or alchemy?
Taking everybody's time on this, and
No, you were
I'll go.
always a ton of fun. It was fun.
Okay.
All right.
See ya. Bye, everybody.
Cute, cute, cute. What is it, Emmy? Come in here, Emmy, if you need something. Okay, come in here. Let's see. Can you ask how does this hurt your life? No, because what is it, Emmy? Okay, bring it to me then. Um, I would not ask that question mainly because you are making an assumption. When you're doing this kind of work, you don't want to automatically assume if it does it hurt your life. It's almost like placing something that's there. You only want to suggest an emotion if they are not attaching to any emotion whatsoever after every possible somatic experiencing possible, then you can ask that. But I wouldn't assume that right away. You would want to ask a question that involves identifying a feeling as opposed to saying, does it hurt your life? You could say, well, are you feeling something that is a little like this? And try to identify, instead of just saying it hurts their life, just identify an actual feeling presence or feeling signature, if that makes sense. Only at the worst case scenario of most resistant client in the world, though. Okay, I've got to do something to get for my toddler here for a moment. And I will do it as quickly as possible and get right back to the rest of your questions. Okay, there you go. Take her to your room. All right. The question is, next question, can I, and I'll take anyone else that wants to be on screen, by the way. Can you ask my dominant guide what I should be working on to unblock my astral goal? Oh, yeah, we just went through that. Okay. Sorry, we already answered that. Someone's on screen. Hi! How are you?
Yep.
How are you doing? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Nice to have you. What can I do for you today? Do you have a question for us? Yen, do you have a question for us? Yen, can you hear us?
Yes. No, I don't have a question.
Oh, okay. Well, come back to us if you have a question. Is there anything you want to say?
No, sorry.
It's okay, no problem. Have a good one. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, someone said I did this for myself and I had to create someone because I couldn't come up with a single person or thing. Can you extrapolate upon that? I don't, cause can you elaborate upon that? Because I don't know how to extrapolate upon that question to really figure out what you mean. You must have said that while I was talking about the process. Had to create someone because I couldn't. You mean a safe person? You couldn't come up with a safe person? That's what I'm intuiting. What you mean? Melina, who asked that question? You can do that if the client or if you are the person guiding your own inner child through the process. If you cannot come up with a safe person in that stage of the process, what you would need to do is consider bringing in the adult version of you. Just bringing the light, just another version of you. Then it will be you walking yourself through the process. It's very, very powerful. Some people will say, no one, it's me. I want me in that memory. Very, very valid. Happens all the time. Let's see. Yeah, and we asked, and Laura asked the same question. We answered that. If you are doing the aura alchemy on yourself, how to use the sound aspect of the technique the same way you would. You could have a tone that you have ready, whether it be a binaural beat, a pure sine wave. You could have a bell, a gong, a chime, a tuning fork, a Tibetan bowl, a crystal bowl, a chanting tone. For those of you who don't have an instrument, I recommend finding your chanting tone that you would use for yourself. We can go over that if you want, the different suggestions for chanting tones. There are some really easy ones like Om, so it sounds like this. Om. With Om, you want to make your mouth into a circle. So that's one of the popular chanting tones that you would use on yourself. Ram is another one, so it's ra, so it sounds like this. Ram. want to feel that all the way into your teeth, to the top of your palate, and let it come up your nose. Round out your palate when you're doing that. It's very, very important if you're going to do chanting during these processes. If you're going to do NRG is produced whenever you are trying to get to an overtone. So it's often used with other chanting tones during the process. So sometimes you may or may not want to just start out with it. You may want to go in between tones to use it. But if you just use NRG and you want to learn how to chant it, purse your lips like you're going to kiss someone. So it looks like the whole time. Like that. You don't move anything else inside of your mouth. Keep it round and make your lips purse. And then if this is your palate, if this is what the inside of your mouth looks like, this is the hinge of your jaw, this is the top palate, this is the bottom, move your tongue up to about a centimeter behind your teeth and a centimeter below the top of your palate and hold it there. And then you can slowly play around and move your tongue up and down slowly to produce an overtone. That is NRG. It sounds like this. Okay, so you just move that. You could feel the NRG changing as I did that, up and down with the tongue. You don't touch it ever. It's just slowly up and move it that way, slowly up and down to produce the overtone that feels right. And sometimes I'll hold it there for a little bit before moving the tone again. Eh is EH. It sounds like this. And you just sounds like eh, EH, like vowels. Eh. It's kind of nasally. I don't like it very much. Ah is self-explanatory. O, you just want to round out your mouth when you do that. E is really fun. And who is really good for oral alchemy. When you combine who with NRG or who with E to NRG, those are really powerful tones for oral alchemy that you can use during or at the end of any session. So who just sounds like who, and you want to keep your mouth like that. Who. Easy. E, it sounds like E. How you combine the three to get the most empowered tones through an oral alchemy is who, E, who. Who, E, who. NRG is going to naturally happen. I love that I get to teach you guys these things. This is my favorite chanting for when I do use chanting for people, when I feel and intuitively ask them would they rather use the bowler chant if they choose chant, which I do ask, by the way, and I can feel who needs chanting, so I'll ask them. Oftentimes, who combined with E is really empowering. So this is what it's going to look like you're saying. It kind of looks like you're saying who we you. Who we you. And when you get to the E part, the we part, the NRG is going to happen naturally based upon the position of your tongue because you can put it up there. And then when you go back down to you again, you're going to allow your palate and your vocal tones to hit every single vowel in between who and E and oo. So who, we, you. It's going to sound like that. But every little vowel that happens in between who and E and back down to who, you're going to feel it. So it's kind of going to be like who. So it sounds like this. Now it's me doing it fast. Let me try slower. Most empowered chant that you could possibly learn for yourself. Play around with the vowels. Let your palate play. Okay? Yeah, it'll sound a little bit like there's a little bit of a whistle in there somewhere if you're paying attention to your own overtones. Okay? And you can change it. every client may have a different tone that they go towards. Being a Lyran feline being, I hit some pretty high tones sometimes. But sometimes I'm just told to change it in between the vowels when I'm chanting for someone. So I may go, you want to pay attention to where you're feeling their blocks, where you're intuiting their blocks. If you've got someone that comes in with safety issues, you want to keep the notes lower because the root chakra is normally blocked, and they respond well to tones that go anywhere from, an A440, anywhere from C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and E. Okay? When you have people with solar plexus blocks, they're going to go well into E, E flat, and F, E sharp, and F even. When you have people with heart chakra blocks, they're going to go from F, sometimes B, though, it's weird, but sometimes they will start to F, F sharp, G, all the way up to B. When you have people with third eye and crown, they're going to go up to high C's. You're going to be led to go in higher frequencies. Okay? You didn't know you were going to get chanting lessons in today's stuff, huh? Yeah. Let's ask some more questions. Someone asked, do I hear in perfect pitch? Yes, I do, but you don't have to. I was just born that way because I'm a very frequency-oriented being. That's based upon my galactic origins. It's kind of a Hyadian thing. See, I'm still singing. I'm looking at your questions again. Hang on. Yeah, that's a good question, because I sometimes run into this. How can I guide someone through the process who has a hard time focusing and staying in a visualization? Is that always resistance? No, it is not always resistance. Some people just are not immensely visual, in which case you would try to guide them towards their emotions, and you would try to guide them towards their thoughts instead. If they don't get memories, what you would do is create a visualization for them, and even if they can't focus on the visualization, ask them to focus on how your voice might be making them feel, and try to go towards sound instead. If someone isn't visual, chances are they are sound oriented, in which case you want to incorporate a tone. And you could ask them, okay, what does that feeling sound like? And then you want to sing, chant, or play that tone with an instrument. You can completely change the process if you have a tonal person versus a visual person. Okay? And if they can't see anything, you could say, well, how do you think that might make you feel? How do you think that emotion might make you feel? They can't always visualize a color. So when you come to that part of the process where they're saying, I just can't visualize a color, you can say, all right, well, what do you think the color might be? What do you know that the color is? These are for precognizant people who come in with more thought-oriented things. What do you think that color, what do you think that emotion might mean to you? What comes up in your thought process right away? Precognizant people get thoughts as opposed to visions of color, okay? And if they can't go there, you could say, well, for that core belief that you want, what would it sound like? Does it sound like this? And listen to your intuition and perhaps chant a tone and have them focus on that tone instead, and ask them to be guided in breathing in the tone in through their crown chakra, and then exhale it down through their bodies. Exhale the tone and have them listen and focus on the tone instead. So that's how. Hope that answers the question. Could you please show us a sample of a short alchemy process? Was a very short alchemy process. If someone wants to come on screen, they're more than welcome to do that, to be guided through a short alchemy process. In the meantime, what I can say is, when is your last emotional trigger? When is the last time you felt that way? Pay attention to the emotional shift. When is the first time you felt that way? Pay attention to the emotional shift. Validate the person, guide them through the memory, call in a safe person. What would you rather feel instead? What color is that new core belief? Breathe in the new core belief, or if they're a sound-oriented person, listen to the core belief and breathe it in as a sound. Either way. This is when I use binaural beats with people. Sometimes I'll pull out some pre-recorded binaural beats if I don't want to chant for them. So, yeah, and then I invoke the I am in me to transmute old core belief into new core belief 3 times if they accept. And then if you want to, you can call in the spirits of the ancestors in a sacred shape only known to them and their ancestors. Then reground the client, wake them up slowly and safely. Here is the part of the process that is step 3 that we haven't had a chance to talk about. Step 3 is something that you do in your daily waking triggered life. Because, and this is why I added step 3 after so many years of doing this process, because so many people were coming back to me and they were saying, I really didn't transmute, I really didn't integrate, I still have so many triggers. You have to create a new point of reference for the law of attraction to work in your life, and this takes time, okay? So, for instance, if you had a core belief and you transmuted it, the transmutation happens the moment you say, I invoke the I am in me to transmute this core belief into this one. It happens. The problem is your inner critic still doesn't believe it because all of the same things from the point of reference to the law of attraction are still happening in your life. You still have the same crappy boss. You still have the same terrible relationships or whatever the case is. Until you change those scenarios, you're still going to have the same triggers. So what you do is step 3. You go back and you re-invoke the I am, and you breathe in the color that you chose during the process, during the face of the similar triggers, the same triggers that are happening in your relationships, in your workplace, with your clients, with your loved ones, with your kids, whoever they're happening with. And then you just kind of chill out for a moment, focus on your breath, breathe in the color that you chose during step 2 of the Aura Alchemy process to represent your new core belief. Breathe it in through your crown chakra just like you did in the practice. Exhale it all the way down through your chakra systems, except this time exhale it down to the area of your body that feels the triggery emotional state. So if, for instance, I get a lot of panic in my chest, so I will breathe in the core belief that I chose with yellow. Yellow is normally the one that I use, and I will say, I invoke the I am in me to feel empowerment. That's one that I've been using lately. And I breathe in the yellow, and I pull it down to where I'm feeling the panic, and then I exhale that chakra around. And I just exhale it around and allow my exhaled breath to push that chakra and to expand that panic out of my heart chakra. I do it until the feeling signature shifts. I keep doing it. I keep invoking the I am and breathing in the color of the new core belief that I chose until the feeling signature shifts into what I want. And then, the more you do that, you invite the law of attraction to begin to change the point of reference, which was formerly the old core belief, into your new core beliefs. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense to you. That's a very important part of the process. All right? Who does regression therapy? I know Candace was here a while ago. She does it very well. Candace Kroll-Goldman. She's really, really someone I suggest for anyone who wants to go into like the quantum healing hypnosis technique. She's the best one that I know. Another person said, can you completely remove the inner critic? I don't understand why we would need it. I don't really believe in removal. It really hasn't been effective. There are some people who I know have garnered in some processes for inner critic removal. I believe that if you remove a valid part of yourself, then you feel invalidated. Your inner critic is just as valid as any other portion of your being. So instead of removing her, why not validate her and show her love so that she can stand aside and work with your inner child? And then there is no form of separation. Then they are one. We integrate them together and then they are unified. We don't remove. That makes sense. Yeah. Let's see. We're talking about etheric core disconnection exercises. Is it important to do etheric core disconnection exercises with clients after working with them? You and the client get to decide that. Let your spirit guide you. Let your intuition guide you. There are times when I'm really guided to do etheric core disconnection processes, and that always happens in the shamanic portion of the journey, which I added as a kind of a step 3 part, step 3.5 rather. Right before we close, I will do that. And yeah, sometimes, but sometimes no. Like today I was guiding someone through Aura Alchemy and we started to get to the point where she said she would feel that she wanted to cut the cord from her sister. And I'm like, all right, let's cut the cord. And she was like, I'm not ready to cut the cord. I don't know why I'm not ready yet. And I'm like, okay, we're not ready to cut the cord. And we started going through all the, okay, I forgive my sister. I do have a cord connection process, by the way, under the processes section of my website. If you want to know what I use during the processes, it's right there for you on my website. And we started to go through the visuals. Okay, visualize the cord, tell her you love her, tell her you forgive her, release all the things that you feel that you've done wrong that require forgiveness too, ask for forgiveness with each other, tell her you're going to let her go now. We start to cut the cord, and when we got to that cord part, she was like, she wouldn't do it. So pay attention, and it's okay to back up from that and say, okay, that's valid. We're not quite ready to cut the cord, so we're just going to wrap our sister in love right now and just sort of come back to this later. So it really, really depends. Someone is saying the question is, this process works on one core belief at a time, correct? Not so much. All the core beliefs are connected. That's why we're going through memory after memory after memory after memory, because all the core beliefs are connected to the negative imprint, and the goal is to find the negative imprint. The goal is to find the very first thing that happened in your human life that caused all the rest of these core beliefs, and then you pull it like a root. When you transmute something, it just pulls that negative imprint right up, like pulling the roots of a tree, and then of course the trunk and all the branches come there with. You can remove tons of core beliefs with this process, not just one. So, see what else we have. Oh, about the okay. Not sure if this is off topic, but because you mentioned that one wants to feel the going up the nose, I often have a tickling feeling in the nose when I'm releasing something. What does this mean? Is the energy releasing through the nose? Why the nose? Yeah. The nose is actually a portion of the sinus tract. You know how ear, nose, and throat specialists, the reason why they're ear, nose, and throat is because it's all connected and goes straight up into the pineal gland. You're actually decalcifying your pineal gland every time you do an so keep doing it. Yeah, it's kind of like the Hansa that's in between the throat and the third eye and the crown and the pineal. It's like the passage that keeps them all clear. That's why everyone cleanses with salt and lemon and things like that. Nose chakra, not really. It's a Hansa. Yeah, it's kind of the passageway that connects your chakras. It's like a meridian point, but it's a very important one. Do you have a list or paper explaining this step by step? Yes. Yeah, I think so. On aurareader.com, under the blog Walking in the Light of the Shadow, which is under the processes section, or you can just Google and it'll go straight through it. Yes, I do. Sometimes forget that I do. It's also on YouTube. Someone is waiting to be put on screen. You're more than welcome to come on screen. What is the purpose of the inner critic? The inner critic can be there. Oh, hello. Oh, I can't hear you. Testing, testing. I know you. I've seen your beautiful face before. Yes, we know each other. I can't hear you though. No. Yeah, make sure that under the microphone settings that your sound is actually, yeah. I'm gonna have to let you go. Type it out for me, okay? Or fix it and come back. I love you. Yeah. Let's see, what is the purpose of the inner critic? Back to that. That's a complicated question. The inner critic is formulated during the stages of the negative imprint when it first begins, and then the formulation of all the core beliefs. The inner critic is there as a defense mechanism, actually. So for those of you who are familiar with my term red overlay, if you're not, look up the blog that I have called Overlay and Transitional Colors, or Google my name, Pamela Aaralyn, Overlay and Transitional Colors, and this can be explained. It's like a wall. It's an energy wall. Those who have strong inner critics also often have overlay colors in their auric fields. So it's there because you've had so much pain and so much physical, sexual, or emotional trauma that you need the inner critic to prevent you from feeling something that the inner child is absolutely tired of feeling. Except that when we're adults and when we're no longer children and we no longer need those defense mechanisms because we want to heal, the inner critic is still there. So we have to very gently and lovingly guide her to step aside and validate her the whole way. That's why I created the resistance process, because I didn't really want to get rid of the inner critic. I wanted to turn her into a kick-ass life coach, a mentor, like a gym partner. If that makes any sense. Because I felt like, well, I'm kind of lazy. I could kind of utilize a critic right now, but I'm tired of beating myself up. So what do I do? Yeah, inner critic process and inner resistance process. That's how that came up for me. So I just don't like the idea of like getting rid of a portion of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like all portions of us belong, and we can unify all perceived fragmented portions of ourselves, because the perception of fragmentation is just that. It is just a perception. We are unified. It's just our minds that make us think otherwise, or our brains, rather, that make us think otherwise. So, all right, guys, we have run out of time, and I need to go spend some time with my family for the rest of the weekend and go take care of my own inner child and go validate my own inner critic. So I love you guys so much. You make my work possible, and you've just provided such a beautiful platform of support, and I'm so grateful for you. I'm so, so grateful, and I wish you the best. You all now have your certifications. Anybody can do this work, and it doesn't take an intuitive to do it. So practice, practice, practice until you get so comfortable that you can get on screen and explain the process like the back of your hand. That is what I suggest, because you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. And if you lose the facets in the steps, just go to my website, go to the walking in the light of the shadow, and it will also teach you what we didn't have very much time to explore today, the component of the process where people actually cannot get memories no matter what. So it will teach you how to do some guided visualizations that involve the chakra systems and expanding the chakra systems to represent the core beliefs that they had versus the ones that they want to create. So that will guide you through that portion. If you just get so much resistance that no matter what, they're not going to get memories, it will guide you through that problem. Okay. Can you post where to go on your page? Yes, I will do it right now. Just Google this in this facet. Pamela Aaralyn, walking in the light of the shadow. Because alchemy is shadow and light. It's conscious and subconscious. Enlightenment involves both. So that is the blog itself, and it will come up. It is also on YouTube. So granted, those are during the days where we had like really crappy sound. So put on your headphones if you're going to listen to the YouTube, because we haven't had a chance to go back and edit the sound on that. It's pretty bad. It's during the days where all of you were complaining and saying, Pamela, you need to get a better microphone. Pamela, you need, a better camera. And I was like, I can't afford it yet. And it was during those days. So this is like one of the first processes I ever wrote down for you guys or recorded on YouTube. It's like one of the first YouTubes I ever did. So have fun with that. Like at least a year and a half ago. I love you guys. I love you so much. Namaste, namaste, namaste. I'm going to go. And you can find me on aurareader.com. You can find me on my Facebook group. You can find me in my email. Most of you know how to find me. Feel free to ask any questions on the event page that I didn't cover here, or just privately email me those questions if for any reason you got confused about any step of the process. Where can you find a copy of the video? In the link that was sent to your email in management. It should still be there for you. If not, just email us and we'll send you another copy. Just click on that link over and over and over again. You should also have your certificates by now. If not, you will have them very soon. Feel free to post them on your website, print them out and put them on your wall, do whatever it is you want to do. And just enjoy being a process facilitator. It is a very rewarding life. It's very, very rewarding to do this work. I'm very grateful that we can help people, and I'm proud of you guys. So I love you. Thank you.